Rome didn't collapse in a single day, and its defeat didn't come by a single enemy. In fact, the people who eventually entered the city might probably not be the reason why the empire fell in the first place. Today, we are uncovering the slow fall of the greatest empire in human history and why its collapse still mattered till today. There are places in this world where silence feels heavier than sound. Walk through the ruins of Rome today and you will find broken columns reaching toward an empty sky. Massive amphitheaters stand hollow. Ancient roads, once crowded with soldiers and merchants, now lead only to echoes. It is hard to believe that these crumbling stones were once the heart of the most powerful civilization the world had ever known. This was Rome, an empire so vast that it stretched across 3 continents, an empire that controlled the Mediterranean, commanded millions of people, and built roads, cities, and monuments that still survive 2,000 years later. Its armies were feared, its laws shaped civilizations, its influence reached further than anyone thought possible. For generations, Rome seemed unstoppable. Its emperors believed they ruled by destiny. Its citizens believed their empire would last forever. If you had stood in the streets of Rome at the height of its power, surrounded by towering temples, roaring crowds inside the Colosseum, and victorious legends returning from distant wars, you would have thought exactly the same. How could something this powerful ever disappear? Yet, history tells a different story. Because the largest empire on earth did not fall in a single battle. There was no one moment when the world watched Rome collapse. Instead, it happened slowly. A corrupt decision here, a civil war there, an economy beginning to crack, borders growing harder to defend, enemies becoming stronger, while Rome became weaker. Like a mighty tree that appears healthy from the outside, while its core quietly rots away. The empire stood tall, long after its foundations had begun to fall. Then, one day, the impossible happened. The city that conquered kingdoms was conquered itself. The empire that was once dictated the fate of nations could no longer control its own destiny. But was it really the barbarians who destroyed Rome? Or had Rome already destroyed itself long before its enemies arrived at the gates? To answer that question, we have to travel back, not to the empire's final days, but to the moment when it stood at the very peak of human civilization. Because every great tragedy begins long before anyone realizes the ending has already been written. To understand why Rome fell, you first have to understand what Rome became. Now, if you enjoy watching history videos told in the form of a movie, then I recommend you to consider giving us a like and also subscribing to the channel, but at least just give us a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm. Thank you. Long before it was an empire, Rome was nothing more than a small settlement on the banks of the Tiber River in central Italy. It wasn't the richest city, nor the largest. It wasn't surrounded by gold or protected by towering mountains. In fact, there was little to suggest that this modest community would one day dominate the known world. Yet, over centuries, through relentless ambition, military discipline, and extraordinary ability to adapt, Rome transformed itself into something history had never seen before. Every victory brought new land. Every conquest brought new wealth. Every road led back to Rome. What began as a single city eventually expanded across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Now, imagine living in a world where every road, every trade route, every decision came from one place. It was the center of the world. From the misty hills of Britain to the scorching deserts of Egypt, millions lived under Roman rule. The Mediterranean Sea became so completely dominated by Roman ships that they proudly called it Mare Nostrum, our sea. At its height, the empire covered nearly 2 million square miles and governed an estimated 70 million people. Nearly 1 out of every 4 people living in the known world answered directly or indirectly to Rome. But Rome's greatest weapon wasn't just its army, it was its ability to build. The Romans carved roads through mountains, bridged rivers that once seemed impossible to cross, and engineered aqueducts that carried fresh water across dozens of miles with astonishing precision. They raised cities from empty landscapes, connected distant provinces with an unmatched network of highways, and built structures so durable that many still stand today. The Colosseum could hold more than 50,000 spectators. Vast public baths welcomed citizens from every class of society. Markets overflowed with goods arriving from every corner of the empire. Silks from the east, spices from Arabia, grain from Egypt, silver from Spain, and amber from the forests of northern Europe. Rome wasn't simply a city, it was the center of the world. Its laws established order across continents. Its currency fueled trade on an unimaginable scale. Latin became the language of administration. While Roman citizenship, once a privilege reserved for a few, became one of the most valuable identities a person could possess. Then there was the Roman army. No force inspired more fear. A Roman legion was more than a collection of soldiers. It was a machine. Every legionary trained relentlessly. They marched for miles carrying heavy equipment, built fortified camps every night, and fought with a level of coordination that few armies could ever match. Where Roman legions marched, kingdoms fell. Generals celebrated victories with magnificent triumphs through the streets of Rome. Captured treasures filled the treasury. Prisoners marched in chains behind victorious commanders. while cheering crowds watched from every side. For centuries, victory became an expectation. The empire grew so accustomed to success that defeat seemed almost impossible. This confidence reached its greatest height during a period historians now call the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For nearly 200 years, much of the empire experienced remarkable stability. Trade flourished, cities expanded, art, architecture, literature, and engineering reached extraordinary heights. Merchants could travel thousands of miles along Roman routes with a level of safety that was almost unheard of in the ancient world. To many, it must have felt as though Rome had solved the greatest challenge any civilization could face: power, prosperity, security, permanence. If you had lived during these years, you might have believed the empire had become too large, too wealthy, and too powerful to ever collapse. But history has a cruel habit of humbling those who believed they are invincible. Because while Rome dazzled the world with marble temples, magnificent arenas, and victorious armies, something far less visible was beginning to change. The empire's borders stretched farther every decade. Its government grew more complex. Its wealth became increasingly uneven. Its leaders became more ambitious than united. The very success that had made Rome great was creating problems no emperor could easily solve. The cracks were almost invisible. Most people never notice them. Empires rarely collapse when everyone expects them to. They begin to fall while the celebrations are still echoing through their streets. And beneath the glory of the greatest civilization on earth, the first fractures had already begun to spread. No empire collapses at the height of its strength. By the time the world notices the fall, the damage has already been done. Rome was no exception.